Welcome, it's me, OG Duffy, back with another versus video, and my god, what a lot of systems I've got for you in this one. Now, as we all know, Double Dragon is one of my personal favourite games of all time, so much so I've done a playthrough video of it, and I've even done an original soundtrack video up there. So if you're ever at work or whatever, or just chilling out, you want a bit of background music, what better background music to have than this soundtrack? There are other game soundtracks available in that playlist too. But anyway, back to the task at hand, which is looking at the mighty Double Dragon. Now, as you guys know, I personally think this was the forefounder to this whole genre of beat-em-ups, side-scrolling beat-em-ups. I mean, I don't think you'd have had Streets of Rage. I don't think you'd have had Final Fight, amongst others, if it was not for this game. All right, I know there's people out there that will say, yeah, but it's to do with Renegade. Renegade was slightly different because you didn't work through to the end of level bosses and stuff. You'd have to clear the screen, and it was the same developer, same programmer and stuff. But I think this was the first, especially with the co-op play and all that. All right, as you guys know, it holds such fond memories from me. And do go and check out my playthrough video of it as well if you've never played this before. But I'm sure most of you had. Now, although I loved it on the arcade, I can't remember many of the home systems for it, all right? So it's going to be really interesting video for me to be looking back at all them old classic systems, all right? I never bought it for my ZX Spectrum, and I'm so glad I didn't, spoiler alert. But anyway, this week I am looking at a total of 17 different versions of Double Dragon. Yes, you heard me right, 17.
I'm on 17!
I've got my work cut out. The first systems I'll be looking at will be the 8-bit computer systems, all right? So we'll be looking at the usual suspects, as always, which of course are the Commodore 64, the ZX Spectrum, and the Amstrad. There were two versions of this for the Commodore 64. We had a European version and we had the US version. We'll be looking at both. And there was two versions for the Amstrad. You had the standard version, and then there was a 128K version. So we'll be comparing both of them as well. Then we will take a look at the 8-bit consoles of the day, the versions for that, of which there was the NES, Nintendo Entertainment System, the SMS, the Sega Master System, and we're going to be looking at two Atari consoles, the 2600 version of this and the upgraded one, which I think was the 5200. Correct me if I'm wrong. You guys know what I mean. All right. There might be some debate whether the 2600 in particular is considered an 8-bit system, but I've done some basic Google research and it informs me it is. Apparently it lacked against the other systems. It lacked the RAM that they had. You guys know your stuff better than me. Let me know in the comments, please. So then we're going to be taking a look at some 16-bit systems, namely the Amiga versus the ST. Them guys go head to head as always. And finally, well, not even finally, then I'm going to be looking at some handheld systems, talking about the Atari Lynx. First time making an appearance on the channel, along with some Gameboy variants as well, all right? And I think this is enough now. Finally, I'll be looking at the Xbox. I think it's the 360 version of this. I'm not comparing that though, that's not in the competition. And we'll be looking at the Super Nintendo version as well. But a lot of people debate it because it's not a replica of the arcade game. It's a completely separate entity. So we'll just look at that for a bit of fun. But finally, the very final version we will take a look at will be the Sega Megadrive version. The one that I think is closest to resemble the arcade original. All right? We've got a lot of games to get to. So without further ado, let's get to it. OG Duffy compares versus not all the variants, but most of the variants of Double Dragon.
Now, as always, we always take a look first at the arcade original. Now, those that follow my channel will know the love I have for this game is amazing. I played this to death at the arcades, and it's one I never failed to bore of, even today. I mean, my games room's been designed as we know at the moment. I'm working out there when I can, and I do have an original jammer cab that actually has the original Double Dragon board in it. That's how much I love this game. Anyway, onwards and upwards. Released in '87 by Technos. It just went on and done amazing things. Now, quite controversially, I always say this, I do believe, and I mean this, if it wasn't for Double Dragon, I don't think you'd have your Final Fight. I don't think you'd have your Streets of Rage and all that sort of stuff in this, you know, that whole spin-off of games that come from the back of this. I mean, the 2-op co-op on this, 2-player co-op was just amazing. The moves were brilliant. The soundtrack was just sublime in my mind, and I just cannot praise this game enough. I really do have a lot of love for this. The only fault with the game on the coin-op was the slowdown. When the screen got busy, especially with 2-player co-op, it would get very cluttered and it would start slowing down a bit. But that aside, like I say, the love I have for this is amazing. Now, I have to confess, I never bothered playing this on any of the home systems at the time when it got released. I can remember playing Target Renegade on my Spectrum, and that was as close as I got to the Double Dragon experience. But this was the arcade original. This gives us a good comparison to go to. An absolutely amazing game for the time. So now, let's scoot on over and look at the 8-bit systems of the day. And let's kick off first with the ZX Spectrum version. Firstly, apologies. We have just looked at the amazing coin-op version, and now I present you with this. Yes, this is Double Dragon on the Sinclair ZX Spectrum. What to say, really? I mean, take a look at them graphics, alright? Oh dear. The slow gameplay on this, meeting with the really comical looking character sprites. Poor sound as well, which was like a crackle striking sound and a blurpy noise. To be honest, this was not good at all. The only saving grace for me on this was some of the backdrops there on the on this version. You could recognise as being from Double Dragon. You know, and that's the only resemblance really for me. And is it just me? But if you look at some of the enemy figures on this, do they not resemble Playmobil figures from the 80s and 70s? Or is it just me? Am I the only one seeing Playmobil figures here? Anyway, all in all, not much more to say about this one, is there? Apart from apologies, I apologise to you guys. Now moving on, we're going to go look at the Commodore 64 version of this next. But as I said right at the beginning, there were two versions. So first off, let's go look at the Commodore 64 version, and we'll do the European version first. The first Commodore 64 version here is the EU version, which we knew in the UK. This was released by Melbourne House Software. Strange gameplay with this one. It seemed to lack the numerous enemies at once. I mean, you get up to 2, but then anything past that was sort of unheard of, really. And it seemed you could only sort of strike one opponent, and then you had to retaliate and back off a bit before going back in for a next attack. Sid Chip did very little here. Same really, because it's capable of making so many great tunes, but they don't bother. On the sort of the loading screen or the introduction screen, you get the tune, but then after that, nothing. So that's a real shame. Again, as well, the sound, you only get that one sort of sound effect, which is a shame, as the other 8-bit computer systems had at least 2 sound effects going for them for their attacking, but again, no music. Also, the strangest thing about this is the strange invisibility line that is between the characters' upper and lower bodies. What was that all about? And now onto the US version on the Commodore 64, which was done by Ocean Software. It's slightly better, as you can see, and it featured the music, which obviously was a vast improvement on the European version. Slightly better combat, but still, if I'd have bought this back in the day, being the huge Double Dragon fan that I am, I still would have been disappointed. But the Americans got a far greater version than we did here in Europe. The first Amstrad version we're looking at is the Amstrad CPC version. Now, as you can see, it looked quite nice, and they made great use of the CPC's colour palette, which is quite evident in a lot of these sort of games. Again, only two sound effects really, which resemble sort of a tap and a knock sound. Gameplay, very, very slow, and the attacks look weird, especially when you attacked with a weapon. So all in all, not the greatest effort, I'm afraid, from the Amstrad on this one. The final 8-bit system from the home computers we look at is the Amstrad CPC, but this is the 128K version. As you can see, it's overall a vast improvement on the previous CPC version we just looked at. All in all, the graphics are improved, but they still look a bit messy to me. But on a positive, they do resemble the arcade game, and it feels like Double Dragon. So, overall, the Amstrad 128 version, far better than the previous one, and a vast improvement. Well done. We now take our attention to the 8-bit consoles of the day, and first off, the Sega Master System version of Double Dragon. Now, as you can see, the level design of this was good. It stuck fairly well to the original. The sprites are a bit cartoony and slightly small compared to the original, but overall the gameplay more than made up for this. Had a great music score too that sat really well like the original, and overall played really, really nicely. So a great start here on the 8-bit console systems. So there we go, the Sega Master System kicking things off in this area. How well will Nintendo fare? Let's take a look. Now we come to Double Dragon on the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System. Now, first off, what can we say? The level layout on this was not the same as the arcade original, okay? But it sticks quite closely, and it goes off and does a bit of its own level design as it goes. But you know what? This really is not a bad thing. And overall, it's a really good version. The gameplay is good, the level layout's good, as I said, and the sound is good as well. And let's be honest, the soundtrack was really, really well done on this as well. So great job, Nintendo, on this. Next up, for the first time, let's go take a look at the Atari systems and see how they coped with Double Dragon. Now we're looking at the first of two Atari systems. This is the Atari 7800 version. I do believe in the intro, right at the beginning of the video, I said we were looking at the 5200, I believe, but no, it's not. It's the 7800, so I stand corrected. The sound is okay on this, and gameplay was not too bad really, but the difficulty level of this game ruined it really and detracted from what could have been a half decent little playable game, you know. So it's a real shame there. So anyway, overall, this is our first look at the 7800 system. So now we're going to look at another Atari system to round up these 8-bit consoles, and of course, there's only one left to look at. And that, of course, is the Atari 2600, more commonly known as the VCS. So here we have it, the Atari VCS 2600 version of Double Dragon. Now, we have to remember the limitations of this system. I know I've included it in the 8-bit systems for the consoles. And you know what? The music, or the little tune that is beeping out there, is probably the most recognisable part of this in relation to the original Double Dragon game. And that's where the similarities end, I'm afraid. There's no real skill to this game. You're just lucky if you manage to strike your stick enemies first, really. I mean, there they come, and I mean, it is very sticky, blocky graphics, etc. But as I said right at the beginning, you have to remember this is the 2600, and it was a very limited system. So, let me know, what do you think? Let me know in the comments. We now skip forward to the 16-bit home computer versions. This here is the Atari ST version. Wow, what can I say? These characters looked absolutely bloody awful. And what is going on with their hair? Right, I know, I get it, right, it was the 80s and perms were a big thing at one point, and along with shell suits and all that nonsense. But what were they thinking with this? It's just bloody awful. I really did expect a lot more from a 16-bit computer today. I mean, this was just shoddy beyond belief. No music and basic boxy sound effects. Really had nothing going for this version at all. Really, really poor. What were they thinking? Please. Let's go and see what the Commodore Amiga can do. Better, I hope. Apologies if you think I'm showing you the Atari ST version again. Unfortunately, I am not. This is the effort from the Commodore Amiga. Now, the Amiga, I've obviously revisited a lot recently because of the mini version that got released. And my God, this is just lazy programming at its finest, and either that or these guys were just living in the 80s and just loved their perms and their shell suits, whatever. I don't know, this is just madness. No music, nothing. Basic box sound effects again. Just a complete port really from the ST version. Absolutely horrendous on both systems. I don't know, this is going to be a hard one to judge between these two, trust me. Moving away from them dodgy 16-bit home computer versions, we now find ourselves looking at the handheld systems. Firstly, taking a look at the original Game Boy version of Double Dragon. Now, as you can see, didn't look too bad. Played nicely. The level design differed again from the arcade, but the sound and gameplay more than made up for this. A very solid performance throughout. Very similar to the NES version, but if you'd have bought this back in the day, especially on the handheld, you would not have been disappointed with this. It was a great little game, played nicely, and did very, very well overall. But did it do enough to beat the other handhelds of the day? Let's take a look. This is the Atari Lynx version. Graphically, this was really good and resembled the arcade original brilliantly. Opted to use the music, which is fairly good, but there was no sound effects. Now, I'm sure what you can see is the major problem here. Yes, the major flaw in this version is the zoomed in effect. This is not just the way I've edited the video, it was genuinely zoomed in like this on the screen. I really don't know why they did this. Such a shame really, because it would have been an absolutely outstanding version if they'd kept it proper full screen like it was meant to be. But unfortunately, this zoomed in effect just detracted from the whole game. And a shame there was no sound effects, but credit where it's due, graphically really good. And the soundtrack was good on this as well. Showed promise. We now come to the final of the handheld systems, and it is this one, the Game Boy Advanced version of Double Dragon. This game is different to the original. Graphically, as you can see, the characters are slightly different, especially the main character, and the levels are different from the original. But the soundtrack remains very, very well done. Sound effects are good, and all in all, this has been a really good version, okay? This is a definitive version that plays and looks awesome. Also features some really nice cutscenes between levels, etc. So really well done on the Game Boy Advance for this. Now, if you wanted to buy a copy of this, I do believe it fetches a few quid second hand, so unfortunately you'd have to stick to a ROM, I think. We now find ourselves on the 16-bit consoles of the day, and this here is the Sega Megadrive version of Super Double Dragon. Now, this will not be featuring in my verdict. I will give it a mention, but it goes up against the Mega Drive. Now, obviously, with these versus videos, we are looking at comparisons to the original coin ops and stuff, so this obviously has no resemblance at all. But it was a good little spin-off. It was a nice little side-scrolling beat-em-up, and again, this is what I explained at the beginning. I don't think, if it weren't for Double Dragon, I honestly don't believe you'd have had these sort of games along with your other systems. So that's why we're having a look at it. Title only, really, on this one. But all in all, not a bad little game, actually. You know, I know it's completely independent and not associated, but hey, it shares the name, and Technos were involved in the production. So there we go, Super Nintendo. And the second to last system we're looking at is the Sega Genesis stroke Mega Drive version of Double Dragon. Now, as you can see, this was near on arcade perfect to look at graphically. They did a brilliant job with this. The soundtrack was good, the sound effects were good, the characters, the levels, everything was really spot on actually. So a good effort all round on the Mega Drive. Let's be honest, the Mega Drive is a great console, as most of the systems that we look at are. They all have their positives and negatives, but this is a version of this coin op that really shone on this system. So a great job on this conversion, really well done. Now we're going to go and look at one more system which will not feature in the verdict because it's a completely modern system, but it'll just be a nice bit of fun just to look at it, just for because we can. Hey, anyway, let's go take a look at Xbox 360's version of Double Dragon coin op. Just for fun, we're taking a look at the Xbox 360 version of Double Dragon. I don't know if this is still available on the Xbox 360, you know. I'm sure someone out there knows. If so, let me know in the comments, let people know, because I'd hate to think people are going to go looking for it and it's no longer available. I haven't been on the Xbox store for a long time, so I really wouldn't know. Anyway, as you can see, what they've done, they upgraded the character sprites, they've upgraded the graphics generally, and not done too bad a job on it, really, I don't think. Of course it detracts a bit from the original, but hey, you know, it's a nice spin on it, and it's good. It keeps the Double Dragon brand alive, and keeps my memories going for me as well. So as you see, like the background and wanted posters there, they're a lot sharper. It seems to play faster, but they've stuck to the original very nicely. So all in all, I'm not going to knock this at all. I think this is a good little job, and if you wanted a Double Dragon fix, my god, you'll get it with this one. Of course it's not arcade perfect with the improved graphics and stuff, but you know what, I quite like it and I wouldn't knock it. So good job Xbox, well done you. So let's go to the verdicts.
So, what a lot of variants there, okay? But what an amazing game. Honestly, truly great game on the arcade, and the arcade original for me, even with its issues, still is a standout title. But we'll look at the 8-bit systems first. We'll judge them. Now, as always, don't go nasty on me if you don't agree with my comments, but do comment and let me know in the comments why I'm right or why I'm wrong, all right? Because I love the community and I love you guys' feedback and all that good stuff that you do. So, out of the computer systems, the 8-bit computer systems, I'm going to rank them out of all 5, all right? Because there was 2 Amstrad versions, 2 Commodore 64 versions. So, in 5th position, it goes to the Sinclair ZX Spectrum. I'm sorry, Sinclair, what were you thinking? I think the backdrops looked all right, but the whole sprites, the whole thing was just a mess. It was an absolute mess, to be absolutely fair. Next up, in 4th position for the 8-bits, it goes to the Amstrad CPC, but not the 128 version, just the standard. Again, very poor, very shoddy, very slow. Yes, slow. Next up was the Commodore 64, and it goes to, in 3rd position, the Commodore 64, the Euro version. Not great at all, really, guys. You know what I mean? 2nd position for the 8-bit computer systems goes to Commodore 64, the US version. Again, not great, but better than the European counterpart that we got. And it didn't have that strange missing section between the torso and the legs that the European version had on the Commodore. And finally, the winner for the 8-bit computer systems goes to the Amstrad CPC, the 128 version. A great job, really. Not too bad at all. Lovely, colourful sprites, and you felt like you were playing a Double Dragon game. So for that alone, you take it this week. Goes to the Amstrad CPC 128 version of Double Dragon for the 8-bit home computers. Now we come to the Atari and the Amiga. So disappointing. Honestly, both of these systems should have done a hell of a lot more with this you know, translation from the arcade over. I don't know why they didn't. They just didn't. The music was missing, and they were capable of doing it. And then, but I think what's the worst thing is the bloody hair on the guys. You know, the sprites. The sprites were all over the place. They just looked like they had a big old perm going on. I just really don't know. So to come to a winner of the Atari ST versus the Amiga is a complete draw, guys. You both failed miserably. So sorry, but you both failed. And now we're looking at the 8-bit console systems. All right. So in 4th position, it goes to the 2600 version. Of course, 2600, the VCS. Only a basic machine, let's be absolutely honest. So that's no surprise that it comes in 4th position. But it did that beepy tune, which is very Spectrum-esque, and it actually, you recognised it as the tune from Double Dragon. So a bit of respect to the Atari for that, really, all right? And in 3rd position, it goes to the Atari again, but of course the 7800 version. An improvement on the 2600, a vast improvement. But all in all, there you go, not too bad. It's the first time they're featured on the channel as well, so welcome aboard, folks. And in 2nd position, I gave it to the Sega Master System, a really good version. All right, so well done, Sega, but it has to go to the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System. Did a great job of this. A really, really good conversion. All right. I know it's slightly off topic. It's, you know, the levels were not 100% accurate, but I think that expanded on Double Dragon for me. And although the sprites were a bit cartoony compared to the arcade sprites, it was just a really good game. So NES, you take it. Next up, the handheld systems. Whew. Now, out of all the batches, if I was to take like the categories, I would say on handheld, it come across really well. Probably the best versions out of the categories so far. I mean, in 3rd position, it goes to the Gameboy original. I know it's just monochrome. I know it lacked bits and bobs. But as I said in the video when you guys were watching it, they done a good job of it. And again, you felt like you were playing Double Dragon. So, you know, respect to the Game Boy and its limitations. But you did that very, very well. And next up, in 2nd position, I gave it to the Atari Lynx. First time appearing on this channel. The Atari Lynx. It's a system I've never really played. I'll be absolutely honest. But the graphics were absolutely pucker. It was really close to the arcade original, you know. But, of course, that zoomed-in effect detracted for me. So that's why it goes 2nd. And in 3rd position, it goes to the Game Boy Advance. What a brilliant conversion stroke expansion. Because although it's a conversion, they actually updated graphics. They changed quite a few bits in it. Level design changed and stuff. But all in a good way. Now, I had a look on eBay at some of the prices of the Game Boy Advance version. And let's just say I will not be buying it anytime soon. It'll be one of them I hopefully find in a charity shop one day or at a boot fair pick-up or something like that. Because I'm not going to be paying them sort of prices. We're talking 100 plus, easy. Anyway, Game Boy Advance, well done, you take it. And finally, the Sega Megadrive version of Double Dragon, or Genesis if you're that side of the pond. Really well done. Okay, graphically it was very accurate to the arcade, looked the part, looked absolutely superb, played nicely, sounds weren't too bad and everything else. I mean, it wasn't perfect, it wasn't a perfect rendition of the arcade version, but it was close enough. And if I'd have bought this at the time on a Mega Drive, I'd have been well happy with it, all right? So a great job. So Mega Drive, a massive commendation to you, because you are one of the only systems that actually managed to pull this one off. So well done, brilliant. And finally, we looked at a couple of other versions. These are not in comparisons, they're not in it. It was just a quick mention, really. And of course, the Xbox 360 version with its glammed up graphics, so to speak, gave it a nice sharpness, and I think it was commended, and it must get a mention because they've done a good job on that. And of course, and then finally the other version, which was the Super Nintendo version. As I say, it could have gone head to head against the Sega Mega Drive version, but the Super Nintendo was not a direct port of the original, like the Mega Drive version. So for that reason, they didn't go head to head, because it would have just been one winner, which was the Mega Drive, because it was the only one that converted from the actual arcade game. So well done. But it was there was one section I looking at the gameplay on the Super Nintendo, and the music in places was very similar to the arcade, but unfortunately that's where it finished. There was no other comparisons really. So anyway, that concludes the awesome Double Dragon comparison video, and my god, what a lot of systems we looked at this week. All right, an amazing game, one of my favorites, as you know. If you haven't checked out that video, do so. Honestly, it's there. And that one too, go give it a listen. Nice bit of background music. Anyway, I've been OG Duffy, you guys have been awesome. Let me know in the comments your thoughts, please. Laters.